about before, the solutions are not always super clear, and they might change on the way. And something like COVID might happen, something like certain climate challenges, other things can happen. And we need to be trying out solutions much more rapidly, but without losing track of the long-term vision that we have. So maybe, yes, we have guidelines and tools, and GEHL work a lot with this methodology for doing like public life surveys, and there's all these ways, but as a approach to urban development, it's very much about the long-term vision, and then really being much more running pilots, testing things, prototyping, trying things out, engaging, see how people use it, maybe be able to change, and then have that leading star. On the day, I'll definitely say good morning, because I'm up way before you, because I'm based in Copenhagen, but I'm super excited to be here. I'm happy that we all got really good at doing this virtual connection, so I can be here at a distance. I think what's happening at this symposium is the exact the core topic that we should be working on. So it's great to see among people coming together to discuss this, and then I really just hope that I could soon come and join in person and be there with you, but soon.
As a practice, we are open, optimistic, curious, and collaborative. We approach our work both as social scientists and architects, spending days, weeks, months, and years investigating the interconnective loop between life and form in cities throughout the world. As social scientists, we observe how people use their environments and how they contribute to people's quality of life and lifestyle. As architects, we are concerned with the form of the built environment in response to people's uses and needs. Our working method is simple and effective. First, we observe how people interact with their city. Where are people walking? Where are they spending time? What activities are they engaged in? We observe in the morning and the evening, during the week and on weekends. We have conducted these surveys for over 40 years in numerous cities. We've gathered a huge pool of knowledge that allows us to compare how people interact and behave in cities around the world. With this base survey information, we can advise mayors, city administrators, NGOs, developers, private and public organizations on strategies and ideas that reach their goals while improving quality of life for people. These strategies are then turned into concrete designs for spaces in cities. We believe that by pairing people's needs, values, and principles with beautiful, usable, intelligent spaces, that we can help people in creating and engaging in the type of life that they want to see flourish in their cities.
Cities are made of complex relationships between people, spaces, ecosystems, environments, and economies. Today's urban challenges are not mutually exclusive. So how might we unfold these systemic challenges to build more livable cities for all? The GEHL lens does exactly this. It's a service that puts lived experience at the core of the process, using layers of data from multiple sources to make sense of life in cities. The GEHL lens is a set of methods, leveraging digital technologies that, together with community researchers, translate complex layers of data into meaningful human stories. Think about air pollution in cities. The economic burden of polluted air is estimated to cost the global economy up to $3 billion every year. Through this lens, cities can respond to real needs in real places, like reducing exposure to air pollution in places where people spend most time. By testing solutions that generate short-term benefits, the GEHL lens is a tool to impact long-term goals such as climate security, clean air systems, and inclusive cities.
Traditionally, you had three types of public spaces in China. You had the formal square, the park, and the street. Today you still have the formal square, you still have the park, but the street is basically gone, it's become road. We need to question this. Maybe these new areas isn't necessarily the dream that they were made up to be. And therefore, I think there will be a need and a demand as well for changes pretty soon. There is a lot of qualities within the area, and if we build a good network of streets and public spaces that combines new shopping with old shopping areas, I think this can get its own identity and be something else in a Shanghai context and be a key destination in the city. Let's do that. Okay. We can't look around the world and take anything that works elsewhere and put it into China. We need to keep building little examples to show that you can do something differently and hopefully thereby inspire the next generation of new towns to have different qualities. I hope we can inspire China to find a variety of answers and within this variety find the right solution for sustainable cities for China in the future, but also cities that create good lives for people. What's interesting is that maybe this desire and need for having the street as a very important social public space might actually become the new destination that becomes extremely important for the social sustainability of the city. It's hard to imagine the car being gone as a status symbol tomorrow in China. But what we do see is that around the world there is a change. People choose differently, and in the Western world this change has taken decades. But China is China and everything happens very fast here. When we talk about mobility in general, we talk about people. We talk about bicycles and public transport. We even talk about cars. But we try to prioritize in the right way. This is the metro here. You see, they even put these things up here to block people from crossing. But right now there's no trolleys. Well, there's this guy here. But everyone that's carrying anything has to get across here. When you arrive there, you're up in the air. And when you come down, everything is designed for cars. You see the wheelchair there, walking in traffic. Because of the fence, they can't even get into the elevator. There is an elevator, but it's hidden in that very, very black hole. So this here is where you're supposed to go with the wheelchair to the elevator. A big problem with the intersection is people jaywalking, because whenever you have people jaywalking, you get congestion in the traffic. The zebra crossing is only in one side, but as you see here, a lot of people have to go here. And as you can imagine, this is not very efficient either for the traffic flow to have that many people jaywalking. The reason for the jaywalking is partly bad solutions for intersections for pedestrians and very long waiting time. What we have to realize in China is that what we spend a century doing, they basically spend a couple of decades doing. So hopefully with this learning curve, maybe there's a chance that the learning curve of going from the car to actually making different choices might also happen faster.
In recent years, the role of digital technologies has become increasingly important for cities. For UN Habitat, the use of digital tools in cities must contribute to sustainable urban development, helping citizens make environmentally friendly choices, promoting inclusive economic growth, and ensuring civic participation by all. However, in many parts of the world, there are persistent digital divides across gender, geography, age, and income dimensions. The New Urban Agenda recognizes efforts to be made to make ICT more accessible to everyone. Since 2012, UN Habitat, through the Global Public Space Program, has worked to support cities realize SDG Goal 11, particularly Target 11.7, to achieve universal access to safe, inclusive, and accessible green and public spaces. The program adopts an integrated and interactive approach to sustainable public space development. This approach applies innovative and digital tools, starting from citywide public space assessment to promote evidence-based strategies and national policies for a more connected network of public spaces. The Citywide Public Space Inventory and Assessment Tool is a digital tool designed as a flexible framework to aid local governments and partners working in public space to assess the network, distribution, accessibility, quality, and quantity of their public spaces in a cost-effective way. The tool takes up a participatory and community-led approach. It utilizes a questionnaire that can be contextualized to fit different contexts and different priorities. Therefore, the assessment could be formulated to capture the broad and diverse aspects of public space, or it can emphasize certain thematic or geographical areas. Capturing data in the field usually means using paper. However, the Citywide Public Space Inventory and Assessment tool uses an open source application called Kobo Collect, which allows the creation of a questionnaire form, fill it out on a mobile phone or tablet, store and view the aggregated information on a central server, and retrieve the aggregated data to one's computer for analysis. The Citywide Public Space Inventory and Assessment tool has been widely adopted by cities. Since 2015, the tool has been regularly updated with feedback from its application in a variety of urban contexts. Through the application of the tool, 40 trainings to local governments, community members, and volunteers have been conducted on the use of the tool, but also the importance of public space and the need for data for policy and strategy development. There have been over 25 visioning workshops to develop recommendations and strategic interventions for the cities. For this, the Global Public Space Program has adopted a participatory approach through the block-by-block methodology, using Minecraft, the video game, to co-design public spaces with communities, boosting public participation and inclusion in urban planning and design processes. Additionally, through a collaboration with the technology company Ericsson, the Global Public Space Program began exploring how virtual and augmented reality can facilitate dialogue about urban design. Being able to see three-dimensional digital models in real life can make the process more engaging, make information easier to understand, and lower barriers to participation.
I love this place. It's such a nice area, but it has not always been like this.
Well, before, the area felt very cold and unsafe.
Basically, it was just an abandoned place.
Block by Block is a program created by Mojang and UN Habitat where we use Minecraft to help community members redesign their neighborhoods. Kosovo has been impacted by years of conflict, and in those situations, we often see communities divided and public spaces neglected.
It was a really cool project because even the little kids like me could help out with make the city a better place.
They got to use Minecraft to sketch and try different solutions about how the space could be improved.
It was very fun because you felt like to be able to help the city while just playing.
After that, the ideas were presented to local architects and city planners, and later that year, construction started.
It's been 5 years since we participated in the program, and the street since then has become more developed and it is now more frequented than before. It seemed kind of unbelievable that this was made with Minecraft.
So seeing my own idea as a kid, changing a whole area in my city, it was very special to me.
It's unbelievable that we were able to make reality what was once only an idea in our computer screen.
finally decision makers have changed their perspective because maybe they realize that we can make a change.
In a democracy, you want the people who live in that community to be asked about what's going to happen in that community. So this is a perfect example. The community was asked, the community decided, the community designed, and the community is using it.
I'm probably going to be like really happy and be like, hey friends, I made this. I walk here almost every day, and every time I see it and I see a lot of people spending time here, it's a very gratifying feeling.
I just hope it will become real as soon as possible. So the reaction of the community was great, and to me it was a great feeling which I'll never forget.
I came up with a skate park idea and some trees surrounding the park.
It is possible to change the world and make your dreams come true.
It felt like I was being heard, and being heard and listened to is one of the best feelings that you can feel.
It's amazing, wow.
People who are passionate about Braamfontein, they call it the heart of democratic South Africa. We're building the public city. And so what does that mean? It means getting local residents, people who really care about our city, to participate in designing it. Braamfontein is really unique. It's got this really youthful population with the universities, and it's critically become a space where we all coexist because there's an energy, and that energy really is the youth of South Africa rebuilding the post-apartheid city.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back for our possible symposium, POB Design. So in the afternoon session, we'll have another fruitful dialogue for you with our 2 experiments and also exhibition. But before starting our dialogue, we would like to have a group photo on stage. So now may I invite our guests to come up on stage, including Mr. C.Y. Ken, Chief Project Manager, Architectural Services Department. Let's welcome Mr. C.Y. Ken. Ms. Ada Wong, JP, Executive Chair, The Good Lab. Thank you for joining us today. Mr. Eric Ho, Co-founder and Director, Neighbourhood Innovation Lab by Architecture Commons. Ms. Sarah Mui, Co-founder and Director, One Bite Design Studio. Professor Leslie Chan, Board Director, Hong Kong Design Center. And also Ms. Sam Lam, Director, Business Development and Projects, Hong Kong Design Center. Okay, let's take a group photo together. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please be seated. Thank you. So all of us did had a very fruitful morning earlier today. Before lunch, we have 4 dialogues. And coming next, we'll have another dialogues. is about possible lab design thinking for placemaking. In this dialogue, we focus on a discussion around how design thinking and placemaking can help innovation for public open space. And after this dialogue, we will also have a public exhibition just outside our venue, and also we will have a tour experiment. If you want to join our tour experiment, you can stay behind, and our guide will take you to have a guide tour and also have some more activities and workshop. So in our next dialogue, we are pleased to have our host, Mr. C.Y. Kan, Chief Project Manager of the Architectural Services Department, to be our moderator. Let's welcome Mr. C.Y. Kan again. Engineer Kan joined the Architectural Services Department as structural engineer in 2008. And Engineer Kan has been involved in several challenging projects, including Pingshan Tin Shui Wai Lecture and Cultural Building and transformation of former Hollywood Road police merit quarters into PMQ, and both of which had received the HKRE Structural Excellence Grant Awards. And coming next, we will pass the floor to Mr. Kan to host this session.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome to join this afternoon section. This dialogue is the last dialogue in today's symposium. Hope you all will enjoy it. This possible lab dialogue focuses on discussion on how innovation can help design thinking and placemaking for public open spaces. So in this section, we will have speakers from locals and overseas to discuss this topic. Our first speaker will be Ms. Ada Wong. She has a wide range of projects through her works at Good Lab and Met Social Lab. She found this think tank and social innovation consultancy to enable tri-sector collaboration for positive change in society. So may I first invite Ada to come onto the stage first. Apart from our local speakers, we have another international speakers from UN Habitat. She's Ms. Joy Mutai. UN Habitat has adopted a macro-scale using citywide assessment tool and micro-scale method site-specific assessment tool. Sharing of block by block as a community participation tool in the design of urban public spaces. UN Habitat's experience of implementing this project all over the world would represent a good way of inclusive urban design. Welcome, Joy, today to join this symposium. Apart from these two speakers, we also have our two excellent consultants for these possible projects. We will have Eric Ho from Neighbourhood Innovation Lab by Architecture Common, and Sarah Mui from One Byte Design Studio. They will walk through the current work of the possible public open space design lab and what we are going to achieve for the design thinking toolkit and the design guide today. So let's welcome Eric and Sarah to come on the stage. So now, let me pass the time to Ada for start his sharing.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kan. And good afternoon. I guess it's not easy to be the first speaker after lunch. I will try to make the presentation short and hope we can have more dialogues and questions. In the next 12 minutes, I will walk you through two projects under different roles. First, from the Good Lab, which is a nonprofit that I have founded, and also the second one is Make a Difference, also a nonprofit that I have founded. These two projects have some commonalities, but they are also quite different. What is common is that the process of placemaking, the process of creating a better community can be, can be very diverse and can be very exciting. And I have been looking at process design in the last couple of years. And so here, the first project is on Yuen Long. And first, thanks to the Drainage Services Department, we are commissioned to do something in Yuen Long. They have a brief to upgrade the Nulla because the Nulla is not adequate enough at the moment. When there's an extensive flooding, then we need better facilities. Otherwise, the whole Yuen Long town center will be flooded. The Park Lab is a little bit different, which I will touch on a bit later. The Park Lab is actually self-solicited. What this means is that a group of young people think that they want to increase the participation in parks and to allow animals and pets inside parks. And so they knocked on the doors of LCSD and they say, can we do an experiment in the park? Here we go for the first case study in Yuen Long. I think for everybody who has been in Yuen Long, this is a familiar sight. This is the Dai Ko, the huge nulla running through Yuen Long. And when a lot of people say, oh, Yuen Long doesn't have space, I said, well, is this space for you? Is this public space? I guess it is, but it is not accessible. And it is actually very smelly. When we first went to Yuen Long and started talking to residents, they say, we call this Chao Ko, very smelly nulla. And people would actually make detours so that they don't have to go near the nulla, in particular in various months of the year. Now, our vision, obviously, is to have a very diverse community engagement process so that DSD understands what the community needs are, what the community's views are, as it relates to the upgrading of the nulla. But we also have a broader vision of creating a more sustainable community in the process. If you want a more sustainable process, I guess you need a diverse group of people. So look at these multiple stakeholders. We start from a number of government departments, such as DSD. Then you see engineering partners beneath, and the Yuen Long District Council, the landscape design partner, Urbis, a number of professional institutes, green groups. We call ourselves a social innovator and a social innovation consultancy, of course, and local residents. So how do we understand diverse views of these people and get them to agree to something? Not easy. We tried many, many different methods. Having a broad design thinking framework. We did site visits, in-depth interviews, street booths, and place walking tours, and co-creation workshops. The usual, you would say, but something unusual happened. Look at this photo from the left upper corner. These people are inside the nulla. They're inside. I've never been inside, have you? But these, the engineers of DSD, they are very open-minded. They say, all right, because we persuaded them, if you want people to understand, the vast space of the nulla, then you need to allow them to be inside, to take a walk, and then they can understand what it means, and they can give us better ideas. So we did. And now one of the upgrades is not only on the flooding issue of the nulla, but in the future, when this whole infrastructural project is completed, part of the nulla will be available as a leisure place, as a leisure place, but during the dry season for the residents to have steps to walk down and then to use that area as really lovely open space and public space. So we did this during COVID. which means that we have to really resort to Zoom, but we try to do the best we can. So a lot of co-imaginations, still using models and still using a lot of different methods, and it worked. Now, I cannot go through the design principles, but as I said before, there is the DSD has actually gone beyond its original intent of just solving a flooding problem. In the future, this Nula and also the walkway alongside it will become public space, will become an accessible public space for the residents to enjoy. Whoops. And at last, we showcased what we did. We attracted district councillors and young people and old people, and we made a video of it. And it's all on our website. If you want to take a look, we'd love to show you the video, but we don't have time today. We did this in 36-degree heat, and so, but everybody still looks quite happy. Right, so some learning from what we did, which lasted for almost a year. And then first of all, we actually got the engineers involved. And to me, I mean, I find this really overwhelming because originally they thought that we are, just like a consultant. So they pay us money, right? So they can just step back and be relaxed about it. But in fact, they didn't. They walked with us throughout the process. So I find this empowerment really fascinating. At the end, they are more confident in talking to the residents. At the beginning, they were very nervous, and they are now better listeners. And I think this is actually more important to me than building the actual thing at the end, because it is about relationship rebuilding that we have tried. Of course, there is enhanced community participation. We engaged very diverse people through a participatory process, and there's stronger connection now between the community and the government understands what people want. Now, attitude change. Some were actually quite apprehensive, as you can imagine. Residents, they didn't think that we are serious about the process. But we were, and so when they realized that their views and ideas were respected, their attitude also changed. And so I think this is a very much needed process of trust building between the government and the people. Right, I won't have time to go through, how can we move engagement, to public engagement from now to the future. But just one thing is number 3. I find that in a lot of infrastructural projects, the whole plan is already drawn up. And so when you go to the community, you just ask them, do you like it? It's like cooking a pot of rice, but it's all white rice. But if I'm a health freak and I say, I want raw rice, I want coarse rice, I want purple rice, that the Koreans eat, right? There's no space for me to say what I want and also to get what I want. So I think leaving space, 留白, is actually very important in the whole design process. Just leave a bit of white space for people to co-create. Now, very quickly, I go to the case study 2, which is the Park Lab. As I said, this is totally unsolicited. We got some funding. We got good funding from the Jockey Club to carry out a social lab process, which is actually a bit like design thinking, but more in-depth and more anthropological, because we go to the field and we observe and we understand the field a bit more using a lot of time and energy. So the Park Lab was done actually about 4 or 5 years ago now, and there's no time for a video. But first of all, I would like to tell you what is so special about the social lab method. The lab method is this. If you want change, everybody is very uncertain about change. Change of policy, change of methods, change of anything. So you need this experimental space. You need this time. You need this intermediary space for more experiments to be to be tested. And so social lab is a lab. It's not a science lab, but it's a social lab. So the social lab creates a safe environment for co-creation, innovation, experimentation. It's just like if you want to make a new vaccine in a lab, you need collaboration and you need co-creation. It's the same kind of methodology. How do we do it? We actually also invite the government to join. So citizens and civil servants collaborate together. We do a lot of user research, and we recruit young people from all fields. They will join the lab for 6 months. So when we tell the government, we're not a pressure group, we are not here to pressure you to do anything, but we are here to invite you to do an experiment together with us. And so, everybody is more relieved hearing that we're not a pressure group, right? So they join, and so we had design thinking workshops. We would do a lot of field observation, site observation, and we have data analysis. And theme formation, we picked up, we see the red threads, and we pick up the red threads. And we do a lot of community presentation for reality checks. We hold community seminars, such as this one, very similar to this one. And we have models, we have ideas, and we invite people to collaborate and participate in a very fun and ad hoc manner. Obviously, this is about public policy change, so we do try to get the government department involved. And so at the end, we do the on-site prototyping to collect feedback. Now, since this is about the park, we have done 6 different prototypes, but I would just like to focus on one today, and that is Park for People and Pets. Now, you may say, but LCSD has changed already. This is in 2017. In 2017, there were no parks for people and pets. I want to emphasize people and pets. They are sort of, very remote corners, somewhere that you can unleash your pet and for running around, but it is not within the park. It's not within a gazetted park. And what we did was, we want to have a space within a gazetted park for pets. So the key issue is a lot of people are very afraid of dogs. Some people love dogs, some people are afraid of dogs. I'm quite sure you understand this. So how might we foster this relationship rebuilding among the people who have diverse sentiments about pets? We did 2 different prototypes. The first one didn't work very well. We found a platform, or found like a podium, and we set up a temporary, we call it a harmonious dog park in the podium garden, but it was very, very far away, and the dog owner said, I don't know how to get to it. Even if they got our Facebook message, they took their dogs out. This is in Mayfu, our experiment site, and they couldn't find where the podium is. So we thought, okay, we can't do it. Then the second experiment, we did it within the park, and we found a place in the Mayfu Park, which is perched on a hill. And so we just use mills barriers to segregate the park with the dogs. And then you can see people bringing pets, and you can see far away that we have the mills barriers. And so this very natural segregation created a safe space for the dog owners to enjoy the environment, and for the dog, not haters, the people who fear dogs, they will go very far away from it. So at the end, this experiment was tested again by the LCSD themselves. And so now you see Victoria Peak Garden can allow pets, and Kai-Tak Runway Park can allow pets. Now, just insights to end my presentation. Again, we got the frontline staff of LCSD to participate. What they did before the lab was they received complaints every single day. One park manager told us that they received 10 complaints every day. So their job is actually not a very nice one, because they take the complaints, they'll have to write case reports, they will have to, send it to their seniors for approval, etc. And so they are not sure, they have no trust in having a solution between people with diverse interests. But, with a design thinking process, with the ability to diverge and converge, we found a solution, have to have a space for people and pets. And so at the end of the day, we see an attitude change of the community. I wish to tell you more, but go to our different websites, both the Good Lab one and the Make a Difference one, to see more. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Ada, for sharing two very interesting projects to us. So I pass the time to Eric for sharing. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Excited that we are going to share a little bit of our process with Possible today. We've been making this project with the Architectural Services Department for a while. My name's Eric from Neighborhood Innovation Lab by Architecture Commons. We design human-centered neighborhoods and put people first and create better relationships for all. We actually started off conceiving the Neighborhood Innovation Lab a while ago to as architects and urban designers and design strategists, how can we actually become sort of that social agent to become in the community and listen to different stakeholders? So we have done a variety of different projects within Neighborhood as a unit. How do we actually create that connection with the different stakeholders, such as NGO, private sector, government departments, etc.? Our mission is to open neighborhood spaces for possibilities, and naturally, public open space is one of them. That is a very good sort of entry point for us to experiment and try new things. So as I said, our innovation model is to look at the intersection between neighbors, service designers, government corporations, property developers, etc. How do we create that cross and that common ground between these different stakeholders? And we explore it with different topics, for example, inclusive spaces, new and old integration, space activation, heritage culture, business collaboration, walkability, etc. The Neighborhood Innovation Lab acts as a multi-sided platform working across boundaries and cross-sector, fostering innovation as a catalyst for transformation. Well, that's our aspiration, and we're incrementally trying to do this with different projects. And you might ask, how do you actually do it, right? What are the ways of achieving that and trying to achieve it? So we do it in a few ways. We do research and feasibilities, asking the questions of how might we understand space-related issues better, and in conjunction, who is using these spaces. We look at toolkits and guidelines, how might we better shape the future together with certain directions, which are open-ended, but we still need some kind of guideline to sort of help shape together with stakeholders. How do we create urban commons? How might we share and co-manage spaces together with stakeholders? And how do we use digital platforms as a way to cultivate the transparency and facilitate these interactions? So obviously, to do this, we need to work with, like Ada was saying, a lot of different stakeholders in the process, government, semi-government, private, NGOs. But the goal is to work with all of these to understand users and public better, so we can all work as a team together to cross the boundaries and really serve the public and the users. And as Ada mentioned again, we also do a lot of these kind of user engagement. So surveys, stories, street polling, interviews, stakeholder dialogues, prototyping, and each of these are input as data points, whether they are text-based, analytical-based, quantity-based. But each of these data behind them is a person, is a human. How do we guide stakeholders to collect input, not just as numbers and data, but as people, and then see each data point as actual human input? That's difficult. How do we humanize data? Might be controversial for some, but I think for us, we see each opinion as a data input, but they're all people's voices, people's opinion, and people's comments about public space or other topics. So in a way, we do follow the design thinking process, and we find different ways to empathize with users and stakeholders, but some of them are very passionate and give us a lot of time. Some of them are not so passionate and may only give us, a minute. How do we engage those people as well, right? How do we effectively analyze these input as ways to identify key issues across these different kinds of people. How do we then create informed dialogues and align the designers, the maintenance departments, the neighbor community? How do we use these as ammunitions and information that we can actually carry through to these stakeholders that may only look at evidence-based information to move forward, right? Then how do we have informed decisions to back this input with data to prototype new designs? How do I qualify the new design because it is based on these evidence or these research? So I'm trying to kind of think back, as we are creating the design thinking toolkit for Architectural Service Department, how do we sort of came about this process? We started with 8 design thinking workshops involving 190 plus participants. Some of you guys were involved in this. Government, NGOs, public space users, design practitioners, academia, through a variety of ways. We went into the site to listen to children, how they play together with Playwright, and through that, we gather a lot of data, a lot of input, a lot of opinions, drawings, dialogues. So all these are different ways that people are telling us how they would like to use public space. So we plot them with what we call data portraits. So what is a data portrait? Data portrait is the demographics of people, for example, the age, the preferences of public space. So you can see all the different colors. The more colors there is, the more different variety of ways they want to use the public space, and then the different stakeholder type. So from there, sometimes we can't capture all of the people's information, or if I gave this report to you of all the people's sort of stories, most likely you won't read them. Read all of them. You might need to read some of them. So how do we actually visualize some of these information in an easy manner? So the more colors you see, the more variety of ways that people want to engage in the public space. And obviously, we also have the more traditional ways of analyzing this data. For example, some of the pain points through this workshop, we had identified about 20 of them. And you can see the larger dots that are in blue are some of the kind of key issues, for example, amenities and facilities. And obviously, we try to plot it in different ways and see what are the issues. And again, amenities and furniture sort of came up the most. So as a way to sort of bring a middle point of, after looking at these things, what are some of the key insights? We found out there's desire for user-friendly amenities and facilities. We find out that people were saying there are not enough amenities and facilities to satisfy their needs. Their desire for inclusive design, desire for less rules and more flexible management, which was covered a lot in the morning's panel, and desire for more diverse social community uses. And from there, we have 3 overarching needs and desire that we think are fundamental. So fundamentals first, human-centered next, and flexibility and cohesion from all. So in the process, we worked with Sarah from One Byte, and together with their research, which she will show later, we together come up with the 3 aspects and the 10 values of the Good Design Lab framework. The 3 aspects are design for people, design for environment, design for future planning. And the 10 values are inclusivity and comparable experience for all, safety and spaciousness, and adequate functional provision, vibrancy and enjoyment, distinctiveness and relevancy, openness for participation, biolithic design, optimal microclimate, sustainable environment and ecosystem, responsive and catalyst for environment, and multidisciplinary integration. Why do I have to spell them all out? Because I think this is important to just sink in for you guys to look at the 10 values, because we're going to refer it for both the Design Thinking Toolkit and the Design Guide as we move forward. So again, asking that question, how do we humanize data? And for whom are we humanizing this data for? In the initial research, we basically look at 4 different types of users that we want the Design Thinking Toolkit to be for: research, academia, NGO community organizations, design practitioners, and governmental bodies. And help them to figure out how to understand users better so that they can design better POS. So I'm going to dive into the Design Thinking Toolkit. and Sarah will talk about design guide later. As we look at the public open space kind of structure and how government is sort of procuring these spaces for or securing sort of the design for these spaces, usually there's a start and a stop, right? There's a planning phase, there's a design phase, there may be there's usually a construction phase, and then there's maybe an evaluation phase. And there's always a pre or post project phase where, how do we actually learn from the previous project, and do we have the same tender and throw it out again to the same information for a different public space, or do we learn from what we had learned in this one project and carry on to the next? So for the design thinking toolkit, we have 3 steps or 3 ingredients. The first ingredient is discover of users. How do you listen to different users better? We have this ingredient 2, which is define and develop with stakeholders. How do you, once understanding a little bit more information about the users and the pain points, develop sort of the right questions, and then so that your design can respond to those right questions. And execute the right designs for it. And then after these projects are executed, how do you take those learning and deliver innovation with the teams? This may mean actually talking to the teams that have executed this project. Maybe this can be scaled to the next department. How do you carry through that process? And what does that process look like? So for the first and second ingredient, I feel like I'm not going to repeat a lot because that's sort of the very normal design thinking process. You go through empathy, listening to people, define, finding the right questions, ideate. This might be working with communities and stakeholders to kind of broaden, the design flexibility and the design possibilities. Prototype, we just talk about prototyping, getting those designs into the community and testing it, and then validating those ideas and creating solutions. But we also are very interested in sort of ingredient 3. It's actually what were discussed in the last panel in the morning discussion. How do we actually expand knowledge and spread it to different departments or different entities? Once we expand knowledge, how do we actually align? For example, a team may think your idea is innovative, but the other department would be, that's very, very hard to maintain. That's actually not that innovative because we can't maintain it, right? So from there, how do we align them to create innovation? Is there alignment within the department to push for this innovation? How do we get there? And even if there is idea to innovate, how do we mobilize the resources? Maybe there's not enough resources to actually push for this new technology that may need an expert on board. And is the tendering process open enough, flexible enough? Is there blank space to create an innovation, right? How do you write in that in the next project? So that's where we want to sort of try to tackle in the design thinking toolkit framework. So as we look at it, we also feel like each of these components we always call this a piece of pie, where it's like very flexible, that you can take your own pie and mix it and eat it in your own way, based on your appetite. So in the same way, the design thinking toolkit works that way. For example, we've seen interesting projects like I think APO did a project where they sort of hack a bench, and it's very, very minimal. Like they actually look at a bench and create new ways to use the same bench, right? Also not a very huge investment, but it creates a very interesting way to create a new idea working with new stakeholders for existing public spaces. So adapting to your own appetite to create your own story. So these are some of the tools that we use in some of our workshops. So cards, frameworks. I think if you're a design thinking practitioner, these are the very normal tools that we are using. But I think we still aspire this to be very achievable and sort of easy to read. And we also will create videos to sort of guide people through this tool. So these are all work in progress. And we have this framework outside. We have sort of our first draft. So if you guys are staying after this, we can show you our first draft for your comments. And I want to get back to this. So how do we actually allow the different stakeholders to use this tool and adapt? So for research and academia, how do we use this to design a better process using evidence-based research? Sometimes they actually might be much more experienced than we are, but we feel like this is where sort of they could step in to help as a team. For NGOs, how do you design a better process to listen and engage with community? For example, if we were given a tender process, we might actually work with an NGO to give them the public engagement piece because they already have a lot of experience with the community, and we sort of coach them on how to kind of create designs together with the community that they already have trust. For design practitioners, how do we design understand users and design better for users? Some of them may have never heard of design thinking and may have never done public engagement before, but this is the tool that they can start an experiment based on their own appetite. But most importantly, I think, is the pre and post project for government. How do we write a broader brief or scope to hire the right teams to understand users better? How to gather the resources that is required. And then for after the project, how do we actually learn from these experiences and align with the new ideas? How do we actually formalize that process? So together, how can we create a better POS with these stakeholders together as a team? This is what we aspire to. And I want to share this video. I wonder if we can click the play button. So we actually have invested in the time and effort to look at the data highlights of how do we use sort of the data in, there you go. So this is actually data that we gathered in this process, in this project, and showing in the beginning sort of the more normal ways that you would sort of compare and look at the data insights using these graphs. But I think I want to highlight also, as we actually compare the different the 6 different typologies based on just as basic attributes like frequency, usage, enjoyment, and even what should not be allowed or should be allowed, it creates very interesting kind of comparison between the different public open space typology that becomes sort of that starting point where, okay, as a change agent or as a design practitioner or as a NGO or as a government department, are there hints that I can start looking at the public open space typology that we're looking at? So this is already live out in our possible website, and you can take your time to sort of look and browse with it. And we're still, obviously this is a prototype, so we're still perfecting it, we're still sort of tinkering with it, but we hope to, our aspiration is to humanize data, but also most importantly create the human contact that these data represent across different projects and with scale. Thank you.
So thank you, Eric, for sharing our path to the design thinking toolkits. Time goes to Sarah for sharing with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So my name is Sarah from One by Design. I think after Ada and Eric sharing, I feel that my part is going to be so boring because I'm going to talk about what a design guide is. And a lot of times we are scared, not only scared of dogs, but a lot of people scared of design guidelines. So it actually gives us a lot of challenges when we go through the process with Eric's team and also HSD colleagues. But at the same time, it opens up a lot of opportunities because as Eric was talking about, maybe the website, what you're seeing today, they are all prototypes. So I think it's really such an honor to be in a project where we see the project as a design thinking process. And definitely thank you, Hong Kong Design Center, to go along the way with us. Okay, so before I start, let me introduce a little bit on One Byte. So I think everyone here is more people-centered. So we are an architectural practice, but at the same time, we see if we need to make places, the first we need to do is how we interconnect different peoples. So similar to what Ada's and Eric's has mentioned, we all care about people here. And so in our team, we have 4 streams or aspects that we try different ways or different interesting methods to interconnect with people. So we have design teams who do consultancy work. We have an urban team here. We talk about urban storytelling. And we have a strategy team that work a lot with NGOs to go through their processes and see how innovation can go in their systems. And we have a social team, which is our own think tank, where we'll try out different social experiments when we could define a new problem or a problem statement. And so a lot of our works focuses in public spaces. And I would say not many of our works are on ground, because we have been doing quite a lot of elevated rooftop spaces. And this process, apart from bringing in all the different local communities, is also a progression of seeing how we could set up new relationship with the other stakeholders. Because a lot of these projects are from semi-private and private sectors. So we need to actually work with them on how maintenance work, how program works, that could achieve the sustainability of these projects. On the other hand, because we want to bring people together, and some of our spaces are a little bit boring now. So what we do is that, hey, let's spark our imagination. We try to use new ideas in events and programs so that we can actually attract people to come here, experience something different, before they tell us what they may want for the future of these spaces. So this include local communities. Even a lot of times, we love to work with like elderlies. And I think for the bottom left corner, it was a morning yoga. And so it started at 5 a.m. in the morning. So it's lucky that we attracted still 20 very pretty young ladies to join us at that section. But we believe that if we want to create something first, we have to observe. And more importantly, like every pilot in a design thinking project, we need to take action. And eventually, we want everyone, or we actually want to bite everyone or give everyone a bite so that they could remember what has happened in this place. And it's actually an opportunity to build new memory of the place. And so I think Eric has mentioned this already about the pizza pie, and for all our participants who joined us in the workshops, you have been hearing about this mozzarella pie for a while. So our role in this possible project focuses on design guide, but we don't see design guide and design thinking to keep being 2 separate books. So we hope that there is integration between the 2 outputs. At the same time, if you are experienced enough, if you are familiar with us enough with the topics, you can use either tools to help you and facilitate the process of POS design. And outside of the hall, and after the symposium, if you have time, you can take a look at the current process or documentation of the process of the design guide. Because since November, I guess since October, November last year, and we have started the process from looking at local field survey, talking to overseas practitioners for their experience and insights. And also we work with a group of think tank, including some of think tanks are here today, to share with us the idea not from the implementation point of view, but also even from planning, from the strategic planning, and how we could inform policy in the end. And so for this design guide, we don't hope it's going to be boring. So we will try to minimize the words, I guess. This is the minimum we can do. But we also want to throw 3 questions to ourselves and also the audience. Is that how can we have a design guide which is not just about good? I'm sure there are a lot of good designers out here. There are good planners, good engineers, even good management parties. But when we look at the lens of desirable public open space, that may be slightly different. Because desirable turns to the needs of the people. The importance and significance of people-centered will be the key. So we hope that the design guide helps you to turn good into desirable. On the other hand, I think what Eric has mentioned, don't just use it when you are designing, because it's even more important when you need to write a brief before the project, if you want to evaluate a project, and also if you want to plan some new initiative. And in the end, the last question we gave ourselves is that, can it not just for designers? Yeah, because I am a designer myself, but I hate design guidelines. Yes, sorry to tell the HSD teams about this. But I'm sure that there will be a design guide, as one participant in the workshop shared with us. Why can't I bring a design guide to a beach as a leisure read? I think this is such an inspiring feedback that, oh yes, we have never imagined the design guide being a leisure read. So can we actually have different formats of the design guides fitting different readers? So this is how we hope that after the symposium today, that's something we are going forward to. So when we talk about innovation, we talk about how the things can be user-centric, creative, even participatory. And two words that I like to highlight here, though the layout looks a little bit weird. So that is not unconventional, it's actually unconventional. Unconventional means that may be something we haven't seen. So that's why the design thinking toolkit will be very helpful when they actually give us methods to bring innovative ideas into our daily process. On the other hand, the design guide can give us ways or examples or inspirations, especially when we can't travel, though we have Pinterest or Instagram, but because we can't travel, so we need to see some new things to give us some new ideas. And eventually, how one POS can connect to the other POS in the network or in the neighborhood and make the whole neighborhood resilient. I believe this morning's a lot of speakers has covered different areas of how we can build a more livable, lovable, and more resilient city. So for the design guide, we look forward to bringing you how the planning, action, and evaluation stage we can help you to go through. And we really hope that this is not a design guide that you will just put on your desk or saved in your office drive or even in the cloud drive, but never open it, but it's something for general public to read. And in the process, So in the process, there are two things I would like to highlight. Can I go back? Yeah, yes, okay, cool. So one thing is that we have engaged a group of possible ambassadors to help us to do the field survey of this existing POS in Hong Kong. And it was amazing because this group of possible ambassadors range from 6 to 70-year-old. So thank you for Happy Aging Lab to work with us, and also all my kids. Is that these people, they are so engaged in the process because they actually help us to audit our observation tours, and then we modify it before they really go onto site. And they are actually the end users, and it gives them a new pairs of lens to look at the POS that they use to do it. One participant was telling us that she lived in Sha Tin, and she went to the Sha Tin Plaza. And she was saying that, oh, I've been here for like over 40 years, but I have never known that people would dance in this plaza. Because actually the cultural center, they have a glass where it's like a natural mirror for young dancer groups to practice and rehearse there. So it actually helped her to understand, oh, so we need more shading because it's a little bit too sunny on a hot summer day. And on the other hand, one thing that we use is called photo voice, is that we try to empower the general public. No one has to be a photographer, but everyone can take a photo. So with a photo and a quote for them, we understand the behind stories from their observations. And so outside the room at the exhibition corner, you'll be looking at 10 values and a pile of strategies, and including how we are thinking, can the design guide talk about design for people, design for environment, and also design for future planning. And under this, each values and each strategies, we are bringing to you one more thing, is a set of what-if questions. It's also something inspired by the design thinking toolkit, is that how can we help each other to think out of the box? Can a design guide ask questions instead of giving answers? So we'd love to hear your feedback after you check out our booth. And also, there will be a set of design parameters. Don't only look at hardware, software, but you also want to think about orgware and something what we call beyond design. So all the words I won't repeat here because the speakers this morning have covered most of them. And later, this last few slides, I would like to just share a little bit about how our previous projects have tried to demonstrate the same ideas or treat each project being a prototype of something. So this is a set of rooftop revitalization projects that I showed in the first few slides. And this project, I think till now, we have done 6 rooftop spaces. And from the first one, it's kind of scared, the client, yeah, not us. The client was scared because they don't know how the impact could be. They may not be confident enough to talk to the stakeholders, to link up with the community groups. But in the end, when we went to the last one, which is a skateboard on the rooftop of Hans in Tuen Mun, the client felt so confident to find and to know which communities they should work with. And in a way, they are so confident to continue their programs. Because one of the sites that I love most is Linbo Sanfu Su Zhong Sanfu, that one in Zhangguanou. It was a girls' priority court, and the client has determined to allow girls' sportsmanship groups to have priority in booking the space. I think this is how, being designers, we can only generate the first idea and also execute it. But from the evaluation and how the impact of placemaking can continue, it really depends on everyone in this room, not only a practitioner or just someone who write the brief. On the other hand, another project that we work with HSD and also FEHD is about how we reimagine public toilets. And these guidelines, if you have a chance, I hope you can take a look at these guidelines, because these guidelines are not telling you the exact answers, but it's actually giving you 10 times of questions to consider when you are designing public toilet in Hong Kong. And throughout the process, apart from general public, we also work with the government officials so that everyone in the process was actually growing with us. And another project I have to highlight is a project that we worked for Hong Kong Design Center and Tourism Commission. And this one, being a prototype, though it takes around 6 years, but as a prototype, but this project helped to uncover and also open up new opportunities in public open spaces that can be so accessible for everyone. So with design inputs and also a design thinking and engagement process in it, we are turning every space around us, which is accessible to public, could be a public open space. So can we actually redefine public open space in this way? And eventually, I'm talking about something fun. So this is called the What Matters, which is, I think we launched in January this year. And this What Matters, we want to think about how we bring placemaking to the digital platform. And in terms of making it fun, we think about game. Everyone knows how to walk. Anyone not using Google Map? Okay, cool. So everyone uses Google Map. So Google Map always tells you how you can go to a place, but it never tells you how you can go to a place more happily. So this machine is called the Happy Walk machine. Being a game, everyone can log into our website to try. It actually, you can fill in your preferences of what makes you happy in a walk. And then we collect this happy walk ingredients, and then you need to end up with a test. And this test is interesting. We have 3 routes for you to choose, but most likely, I think we only have 10% of people who could successfully pick their happy route. So I think we know what makes us happy, but we never be aware when we walk. Can we walk a little bit more happily so that our city in general can be a healthier and more livable place? So I think this is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for her sharing. After listening to 3 local speakers on sharing our local experiences, I would like to invite Joy to share the experience from international perspective. Joy, please.
Thank you, Mr. Khan, and good afternoon to everyone, and good morning to the ones who are connecting from this side of the world. First, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to this symposium and the fantastic presentations that were there beforehand. So what I'll be giving you is a general, some of the tools and approaches that we use under the Global Public Space Program at UN Habitat. I will not go into all the tools, but I will speak about specific tools that Mr. Khan had mentioned earlier. So as UN Habitat, we are the custodian agency of Goal 11. So we support cities towards sustainable communities and cities. And so what we've done under the program is that we have developed a framework which cities can adopt to in regards to both reporting to the SDGs, but also the new urban agenda, but also looking at their long-term plans as a city when it comes to public space. And the first instance that we ask them to do is really to understand the state of their public spaces. And this is really the data collection that has been talked about previously, but now at the citywide level. And then moving into demonstration projects and implementation of projects, but also having guidelines and updating their strategy documents as they move ahead with that information in hand. But really going into implementation of public spaces that show the policy at the local level that has really been implemented at a site-specific level. So this is data as of 2021, but currently we are present in 90 cities as a program in around 55 countries, supporting public space activities at the different scales that I mentioned, citywide all the way to site-specific to implementation of project. And through this process, we have impacted more than 2.3 million people now who have access to safe, inclusive, and accessible public spaces. So the tool that I'll talk about is really the citywide public space assessment, the site-specific and the block by block. So the citywide public space assessment, we've really developed that for local governments when it comes to understanding the state of their public spaces, both at the spatial level and the non-spatial level. So in that case, they're able to prioritize areas within the city to implement public spaces, but also prioritize public spaces for upgrading. So the tool uses a mobile application, which can be contextualized. The questionnaire that has been mobile application can be contextualized to fit any context, and it assesses the accessibility of public spaces. It looks at distribution of those public spaces, as well as the network, the quality. And when I say quality of public spaces, I really mean looking at safety issues, comfort issues, accessibility, amenities. What are the conditions of those amenities? What are the different lighting infrastructure, sitting infrastructure that are existing in the public spaces, but also looking at the quantity of the public space. As we know, one of the indicators within the SDG target 11.7 is to map out and understand the share of land that is allocated to public spaces. So this is really one way to report to the SDGs. So there's a process that we undertake when it comes to the citywide public space assessment, from field data collection, engaging communities really because they do understand the context of the city, all the way to reporting of the results that are coming out from those data points, and also looking at updating a strategy in the case or developing a new strategy. So this is really the process. It goes through, almost 5 months of engagement, 5 months of going back to the field and really understanding what are the issues that that public spaces have. And when I say public spaces, we have different cities that have looked at it from different, typologies. It could be public open spaces, they could be streets, they could be public facilities, such as religious centers. Oftentimes you're asked, why would a city do this? Why would a city undertake a citywide assessment? One of the things is to have an inventory of public spaces, and you will be surprised by the number of cities where we've gone and they do not have this inventory of public spaces, or whatever is on the ground does not match the inventory that this municipality have on their databases. Another thing is to update, as I mentioned, to update the public space, the citywide public space strategy, or to have a new public space strategy in the city. In other cases, they would like to look at their institutional framework and how the implementation of public spaces is undertaken within the municipality, but also their legal and regulatory frameworks. But we found that it is a great way of municipalities to allocate funding more efficiently as they understand which spaces and which areas they need to prioritize. In some cases where cities have a strategy, they have an inventory of public spaces, they would like to tackle emerging issues. And this could be related to biodiversity loss, could be related to safety for women and girls in public spaces, could be related to heritage loss. So this process is undertaken, and then the municipality can have policies and guidelines that address these issues. But also in some countries where we've been, they would like to look at public space at the national level. So how to mainstream recommendations at the national level. In this case, what we recommend is that the country identify a representative sample of cities, and then we commission these citywide assessments. So the recommendations that are emanating from those assessments are fed into the national urban policy. I would like to give you a very quick example, as I know I have a very short time. We've done this in over 36 cities, and this is an example from one of the districts in Wuhan, where the district wanted to just protect public spaces, and they asked us to, support them with this toolkit and how they can go about data collection in the district. And so what happened is that through this process, they identified, public spaces that needed to be upgraded, which went to the next stage of implementation, but also they identified how to create a network of public spaces that are within walking distance in the district. And that is prioritizing pocket parks, inner city lakes and parks, and also looking at linear spaces. So at the end, they wanted to increase their green area per capita, and this is one of the strategies that they had adopted in Jianghan district in Wuhan. So as I mentioned, in more than 36 cities, I know the slide says 34, but we are present in 36 cities with, as I mentioned, thematic entry points, be it safety, be it markets, be it streets. So each city takes up their own priority, and they develop the toolkit for their own priority. So once the city has really identified that these are the public spaces that we would like to upgrade, or these are the areas within the city we would like to create new public spaces because they're not within walking distances, the next step is really to undertake a site-specific assessment, looking at one specific site and really going into the details of how that site, how the different activities are happening in the space, how people are interacting with the space, what are those safety issues that are occurring in the space. And this is really driving from more the citywide level to the site-specific level. And in this case, we're looking at how to boost local economy, how to boost health, how to think about environmental resilience, but also social inclusion. So the site-specific toolkit look at several indicators, about 20 indicators that are taken through 4 steps from pre-assessment all the way to evaluation of public spaces. This is really a tool that is used for evaluating public spaces post-implementation. And it looks at indicators that are under 5 dimensions: accessibility, green coverage, comfort and safety, amenities, and then use and users. So these are some of the indicators that are looked at under the 5 dimensions, be it seating, waste bins, bike racks in the public space, just looking at pleasant views even in public space, how the users perceive that, but also biodiversity within the public spaces. But what is important is also to look at 5 minutes walking distance to that open public space, so that you ensure that there's that overall experience that the user will have when they are walking towards the public space. So an assessment is also done within the 5 minutes walking distance, and this also translates to what we do under the SDG Goal 11, looking at people living within 5 minutes walking distances to public space. So eventually all these indicators are aggregated and a scoring system is done in regards to which dimension and which indicators are, have more issues and which needs to be prioritized when it comes to the design of the public spaces, but also looking at what are some of the, priorities that the city would like to address in that specific public space. So ideally, that is a first step in terms of the design. You come up with some very general concepts about some of the issues that have been looked at, but also look at some of the priorities for design in that public space. So the next step usually is moving to placemaking and understanding, how do we test temporary solutions in these spaces. We've done several processes, as I mentioned, with Wuhan, and I just wanted to bring in that example again, because one of the things they identified was creating a training center within Wuhan that they could also train about all these tools while also applying them within the city. And we know that, placemaking really brings in several issues, talks about bringing a sense of place in a public space. And it looks at, as well, different issues. I mentioned technology, architecture, health, and well-being, but it's a first step to implementation of some of those strategies that were identified during the site-specific assessment. So one of the things that we have done in different cities is trying to understand how to measure some of those issues of that site prior, but also testing temporary solutions such as, in seating, just painting on the street regarding bike lanes, but also then moving that into permanent implementation. And these are some of the examples that we have done. And just mention that placemaking has become a big movement also globally. In Wuhan, we started with one placemaking event that was bringing international placemakers in China, so that it was really a starting point to creating a network of placemakers within the country. It was really a good step also to bring international, speakers, international experiences to Wuhan, from placemakers to ISOCAP all the way to different, practitioners and NGOs that were in the event. But also we brought in students. This was also a way of bringing students in the design of public spaces, but in this case, we're looking at also streets and heritage spaces in Wuhan. We undertook training for these students to understand how to apply these tools also within their academia. And it was also a launch of a placemaking competition that was ending. And what we found is that really students wanted to look at these tools and really take it up in terms of their research and see if there are other ways of improving them and contextualizing them within the context. So there are regional networks that are growing when it comes to placemaking, Placemaking Asia. We also have, Think City that are pioneering placemaking Malaysia. We have Placemaking Asia, and these networks are still growing. There are different avenues to discuss about placemaking and how placemaking can be applied in different contexts. And the last tool I just wanted to talk about, the block by block methodology, where we use Minecraft to co-design public spaces. And what we've seen is that one of the key issues and the reason why we started using Minecraft is that we find that using maps and using, paper sometimes can be quite difficult with participants. So what we see with Minecraft is that the 3D dimension and really seeing your public space and the context within a digital model really helps communities to contextualize with the space. And we've seen it as a way of bridging differences in terms of dialogue. Different people from different backgrounds are able to come together and really co-design a public space through Minecraft. We also find that through the use of Minecraft, we build, digital literacy. We also build skills, communication skills, and it really empowers the community when, at the end, when they're presenting their ideas in front of, government representatives and, practitioners, experts, they feel really empowered that, they get to actually speak about some of the ideas that they have for their public spaces. We've seen that also some participants are taking coding, a post-Minecraft workshop as one of the areas. So these are some of the hard and soft skills that are built through the use of the tool. And we know that all contexts matter in this case. And that is one of the questions that we are asked: how do you balance all these ideas that are coming out from everyone? Because at the end, you cannot upgrade all the ideas that are coming out from all the participants in the public space design workshop. And what we've done is that we've created a process within block by block, 3 phases: planning, workshop, and implementation. And the first step is, once the site has been identified, of course, it's going towards a process of really looking at the technical capacity that exists within the city, looking at some of the financial restrictions that are there in regards to implementation of public spaces, but also operational requirements in regards to developing or having that Minecraft workshop, having computers, a venue, but also having a Minecraft to be able to facilitate the workshop. So in the workshop, once the workshop happens, the first thing is really going through in essence, a visit or an exploratory walk or a safety walk with the participants, and really understanding the issues and challenges of that public space. And in that way, they're able to really, that is the first step of building trust, actually, because they are together and they're trying to identify some of the issues, challenges, but also a vision for that city. And once the participants come back from the visit, they are grouped in 2 to 3 people, where they're able to design their ideas in Minecraft. And then they, at the end of that workshop, which it takes maybe 2 to 3 days, depending on the city, sometimes 5 days, then those ideas are then presented. From that, there's a prioritization list, because previously we had the initial planning phase. We looked at the financial restrictions, we looked at the technical capacity. So we try to basically prioritize those public spaces, looking at those feasibilities, prioritize those ideas that are coming out from the participants, and eventually we discuss with them about, these are the priority ideas that are coming out, and finally that will move into an architectural design, which is then done by expert. There's an expert design studio that happens, but eventually the final design is brought back to the community, and they are explained why some ideas have changed and why some ideas have been eliminated, or why ideas have been moved to a phase 2 of the implementation. And then the final step is really moving into implementation. But what is also important is that the process of implementation is very inclusive. We try to create jobs in the local community through implementation of the public spaces. And then there's that feedback loop when it comes to the site-specific assessment, 6 months, 1 year post-implementation of the project. And this process really addresses different thematic entry points, be it refugees, be it women, be it persons with disability, older persons, and that is really the beauty around it. I will just leave with like 2 final examples. I know I am way past my time. In the case of Wuhan, again, we started with one project, actually 2 projects in parallel. One in one of the neighborhoods in Airalu, where the block by block workshop was done, but that really translated into the district-wide assessment and moved into another district within the central of Wuhan, and moving into the placemaking movement at the country level. But also we see that in other cities, we find that cities request us to develop indicators for them to have a longer plan, a longer vision for their city. For example, in Chengdu, we developed indicator frameworks for the city to be able to have, to look at it from a park city level. So one of the case examples I wanted to bring was Donghu East Lake, one of the parks that we supported in terms of the design of the public space, but also going through this process of engagement with the community. And we found that, through this process, there was really a buy-in from different stakeholders as a result of the, engagement process that happened, and implementation of this was done, and we found that there was a lot of improvement of the site in terms of use, in terms of biodiversity, but also in terms of economic activities that were happening in the space. And finally, the last one is to show you some of the implementation of projects. This is in Sebarang in Malaysia. The public spaces do not need to have, really high cost implementation. You can also look at low cost implementation of some of the ideas that are coming out from the public space. I will share the links to all the toolkits that I talked about even more when we're looking at Minecraft. We're looking at mixed reality using AI, and also looking at augmented reality and virtual reality in terms of engagement in the design of public spaces. And with that, I would like to close my presentation here.
Okay, thank you, Joy. Thank you for your sharing, including a quite innovative digital means of using Minecraft, which sounds very interesting to me. I would like to take this opportunity to seek some views from our guest speakers. Our design thinking toolkits and design guides use the subject of, or use the terminology of design thinking. I also learned from Ada's presentation that in her past projects, the design thinking approach has also been adopted. However, I think the term design thinking may be new to some of our audiences. So I would like to ask if you can think of any tips for us on how to apply design thinking in our day-to-day life, so that we can getting used to this method. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Khan. Maybe I will start first. I think, the design thinking method, although it might not be called that, has been with us and has been with the government for a long time. Now, I have been a district councillor and also an urban councillor. So back in those days, the government will come to us with a plan, with a big project, and will say, now we want to seek your views. And as I said before, the whole project has been already cooked up for like at least 3 to 4 years before it goes to the district council. So by the time it goes to the district council, nothing can be changed. And so, the process of community engagement is only, I would say, lip service. And other stakeholders cannot really have a meaningful contribution. Design thinking, to me, in daily life, is actually about communicating better. It's actually allowing other stakeholders to participate in your process. So take that same example. If any government department has a plan, whether it's to build on this piece of land or to have a railway or whatever, before even drawing up the plan or engaging, engineering firms, they might go to the district council or to the community and sit in the community and communicate what they want to understand. What are the needs of that community? How would that project benefit the community? And then, what would people think if such a project is being implemented? So normally a government department would definitely do this, but not to that scale, not as extensive. But I am actually saying, and I have been advocating, that you don't lose, you will never lose if you follow the design thinking method, because you already know what people think back in the early days. If people really do not like your project, don't push it through LegCo, right? Because you know that the community really hates the project. Now, there are lots of projects like building a columbarium, right? Those are really projects that the community doesn't like. But with design thinking, you can maybe understand the diverse needs and maybe converge. Like people say, oh, waste disposal and refuse collection centers, they are horrible facilities that everybody would like to kick out. But I think with design thinking, you might be surprised to come up with different solutions. So I think, design thinking as a method starts with empathy, and then the next thing is to do a pilot so that you gain the understanding of the community. And I think for that, any government department should find this meaningful, rather than, going for a consultation, a lip service consultation, when it is already too late.
Well, I can use an example that we much smaller scale than what Ada was saying. Project that we work with Sengkong Wui Meckley Host Lady Center. We went into the Kwaiching community and trained 10 what we call Kaifong Fellows, Civic Design Fellows, Kaifong 研究員, and they were all newly immigrant mothers because we want to explore the issue of caregiver-friendly park. What does a caregiver-friendly park means? 一個照顧者友善嘅公園係點樣樣? So it was very interesting because obviously we came in with the design thinking methodology and all that, and we actually really work with the staff and Yan's team at Sengkong was really good. So the team was very immediately sort of absorbed it. But then when we sort of talked about that with the newly immigrant mothers, at the beginning the terminology was obviously hard for them. But once they got it, they really got it. Like they're like, oh, so you mean putting yourself in other people's shoe? Yeah, okay, yeah, that's very simple. So I think it's about how we like Ada's saying, how we communicate the design, how do we translate the methodology into terms that people can understand on a day-to-day basis. And once they know that, they were tremendously helpful because they always were going into the parks. They tell us all the little things about the parks that we don't know, where the waters were. Well, I'm not gonna go into details. But I think what was interesting is because they were sort of users of the parks, they were able to engage the users of the park, kind of like the park ambassadors that Sarah has. They were able to empathize very immediately, what the people's needs are and tell us, what are the gaps. And they came up with very interesting solutions because we were able to put themselves into other people's shoes because they were that people that we were trying to sort of understand, right? And they came up with 3 software solutions that are super interesting. Like they want play ambassadors that they play with kids, and because some of the mothers were already doing that with playing with the kids, and all the other mothers were resting. Well, this one mother is like playing with 20 kids. And then we have other examples where they would love like some checkout points, like things that kind of like West Kowloon where you can like check out seats, but at a neighborhood district park, can you do that? Obviously, it's very difficult in terms of the operations, but those are some of the very, very interesting ideas that were based on their real pain points because they were carrying a lot of things and like very tired. Is there a place to lock some of those things, as they go to the park, right? So I think once you sort of explain the design thinking process to them, they were able to very immediately understand it and then apply it in their own way. So I think that's what we would say about design thinking.
Yeah, I think communication is so, it's like a magic that if you actually try to open the door and then people will feel welcomed and they feel they're invited to contribute. So I think maybe as a mindset is rather than tangible design thinking skills is being able to stay curious and also believing in everyone has the right to contribute. We may just not being able to empower them enough in the beginning. Because one example, I think similar to Eric's one, is a project that we work with MAD, that we went to a school and we hope to, yes, it's about making play spaces in school. When we bring the kids together and say, hey, let's design something for the principal, for the teachers, and for the janitors. One of the kids were saying, no, I'm not designing for janitors. Why? The school is mine. What I'm doing here? And then he was like a little bit grumpy at first. And then we welcomed the janitors in, talked to her, telling him how his daily routine, how he was helping to clean the school. And eventually he designed a fitness station where kids can play and the janitors could do stretching. I think if we bring this empathy in and help everyone to stay curious about other people, I think it actually helps to create win-win situation. Yeah, so just a small tips and mindset. Thank you.
Thank you. So maybe I can come in and just talk about it, as many of the speakers have already brought some of the key points about design thinking. I see, what I see is that it's about integration and bringing different voices from, is it from gender, age, ability, and what we see is that through this whole process, it does not only empower them, it creates awareness around public spaces. Oftentimes in the areas where we've gone is they don't realize the importance of public spaces, yet they use it every day. But when they, when we go through the process and explain what public space is and some of the impacts that implementation of public space have to their lives, really changes their mindset, as mentioned earlier, and creates that also capacity that is built within the community to be able to manage and implement those public spaces post implementation of the spaces themselves. So I see it as a way of integration and also doing that feedback loop and ensuring that there's capacity that has been built within the community, and communities are really empowered to take up public spaces as their own.
Okay, thank you all of you for your very inspiring sharing. Thanks again for Ada, Eric, Sarah, and Joy to sharing with us in this afternoon. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's give another round of applause to our moderator, Mr. C.K. Khan, our speakers, Ada, Eric, Sarah, and joining us online, Joy. Thank you so much. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very fruitful day from the early morning today until now, and I hope all of you enjoyed the presentations from our speakers. Once again, thank you all of you for joining us in the Possible Symposium POS Design. We'd like to express our sincere thanks to all of our speakers, collaborating organizations, supporting organizations for your support to the symposium. We could not have put together such an inspiring and also engaging event without all of you. I hope all of you enjoyed this symposium and find it enlightening and valuable, and had the opportunity to meet our outstanding speakers. But we won't stop here. Just outside our venue, we'll have an exhibition for public exhibit, and also we'll have some tour experiment until 5 in the exhibition, just outside our multi-purpose hall. Please join us. And also, we'll have another tour starting 5 minutes later at 4. So if you want to attend our tour experiment, please join us just next to the stage. And our staff with the green neck tag will bring you to the tour and have a group, form you in groups with all of our participants. So please join us and stay with us. Once again, thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you in our exhibition and also our tour experiment. Thank you.